In Lesson 1, we'll attempt to distinguish between a hazardous material incident and other emergencies you may encounter as a first responder. Okay, now let's go over the definition of a hazardous material incident. And that's an emergency involving a substance that poses an unreasonable risk to either people, the environment, or property, or some combination thereof. And it can be a substance that's released from a container, such as a barrel or a cargo container, or it could be a substance that's on fire. And it can be results of an accident, say a car accident or a chemical plant fire, or it could be some deliberate action, such as sabotage. And it's different from other emergencies. We'll cover that a little bit later. And one note to remember, in the United States, we use the term hazardous material, but in many other countries, including Canada, you'll see the word dangerous good, and those can be used synonymously. But it's important to remember that if you're talking to personnel from another country. Okay, now that we've covered the definition of a hazardous material incident, let's consider that how a hazardous material incident differs from some other emergencies you may encounter as a first responder. So say for instance you are responding to a heart attack call. How would that be different than a hazardous material incident? Okay, because a heart attack is a risk to a person, but it may not involve a substance. Okay, so think about the other ones, the cat stuck in a tree, a hostage situation, and an active shooter scenario, and think about the differences and what makes them different than a hazardous material incident. Okay, so now here's some ways to identify the differences between a hazardous material incident and other emergencies you may encounter as a first responder. So a hazardous material incident may be extremely difficult to contain and or control, especially if a fire is involved. May require special equipment or procedures or protective equipment that you may need in addition to the normal gear you would wear. And also it can be very difficult to detect. Let's think about if you were to show up on a scene of a car accident or a truck accident and there was an unmarked container and the contents had spilled out. How do you know what's involved in that? Okay, now that we've covered Lesson 1, let's take a moment to test our knowledge. So a hazardous material is a substance that poses an unreasonable risk to all of the following except. Let's take a moment and think about which answer makes sense. Okay, if you chose answer C, you chose correctly. The value of a company's stock may be affected, but it's not a part of the definition.